what did we miss here? An RE6 fan story. Yes. If you guys missed it, Seek was first off, thanks Seek for jumping in. I don't know if I've said that already, but you being here has been awesome. Thank you. This was cool. This was your idea, by the way. This was all your idea, so I take no credit behind any of this going on. But it's been awesome. Playing this and just kind of going through, learning new things actually, about the history of Resident Evil as well, and having you here to kind of like talk through the narration and whatnot, since writing is your strong suit for sure. It's been awesome having you here playing these games.
Thanks, man. Well, yeah, it was funny because you and I talked for a while about, maybe playing something together. The only problem is I can't host things, with my internet and my limited, my setup being limited. But I looked at that as like a great opportunity to be on other channels. I was like I don't see it. Like, I know you were like, oh, dude, we'll have to do something on your channel once. Like, even if I'm never able to make that happen, that's okay with me. Like, I like being here, and I like this. I like hanging out with friends, but I also like, it's fun talking about Resident Evil. Like, I love this universe so much, and like I say this on my stream all the time, but I think on the surface, and why the movies are the way they are, the live-action movies, is because I think on the surface, Resident Evil looks like a very simple premise that doesn't have a well of lore to it, but there actually is like decades of history in this universe.
I mean, 20 years now, right?
Like, well, not only that, but just like, yes, the game itself in our real time, but in the game, the origins of Resident Evil go back to the late 50s, early 60s with Oswald E. Spencer.
Yes,
so like,
yes.
There's a lot of untapped potential in the storylines for these games, and I think some of the games explore them really well, and other games kind of fudge them here and there. When I look at trilogies, like for example, Resident Evil 3, which wasn't originally supposed to be Resident Evil 3, Code Veronica was originally supposed to be the end trilogy episode of Resident Evil. But obviously they had a big hit on their hands, and Code Veronica got pushed back a year in development because they were developing it for the Dreamcast, which was a hard system to develop for at first. So then they were like, well, let's quickly make Resident Evil 3, and by quickly making it, I think is why there's some of those story inconsistencies that you and I don't like. Resident Evil 6 is different. This one actually had time to plan, and even though they scrapped some ideas, this one did not go through as many. It went through a lot of production problems, but not creative rewrite changes like 4
No.
and like 2 did. This one, they were pretty much like, yeah, we're going to tell this very bland story, and we're just going to make it look beautiful and put a lot of content in it, which I appreciate. And the reason they did that is because they were mad, or they knew fans were mad from Resident Evil 5, who bought Resident Evil 5 and then had to pay for the DLC of Lost in Nightmares, which originally was supposed to be in the game, and they.
I mean, it was in there.
Extra money.
It was. If you look at the download file, yeah, it's in there. It was buried in there.
Yeah, and so I think they were trying to just please their fans. And I've stuck with a lot of companies over the years: Marvel, DC, film companies, video game companies, Konami, Capcom. And I will say, at the end of the day, even though Capcom has had some misfires, I knew, not from personal experience, but I just knew in me that they cared about their fans and what their fans thought. And then luckily that, having met them in various different times over the past year, including San Diego Comic-Con, I now can say, okay, that was true. Like, these people that work there do care, and they do listen, but they still aren't above trying new things. So I like a company like that, and even though they all but abandoned Mega Man, then they released the Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite trailer, and it opens with Mega Man, the first character you see. So clearly Capcom is like, look, we know we have these great properties, we know we've let a lot of them slip away from us, we know we've misfired on the previous Resident Evil games, so we're trying. And that is better than most companies will give you, including something like Konami, who I have all but lost faith in.
And just to add on to that, it's like, you look at the PS3 era and how Sony in general just had a lot of missteps. I feel like the same way with Capcom had a lot of missteps between the, I think the reiterations of same title games like Street Fighter 4, having fans repurchase these games, a lot of content that was hidden into the game behind a paywall with like Asura's Wrath, Resident Evil 5. If there's companies that learned from all that stuff, it's Sony and Capcom for sure. And I think this generation, they have made up a lot of that and clearly rebuilt a fan base, minus, some of the mishaps with Street Fighter 5. But I think they clearly understand what's going on. And like you said, they do really care. I mean, that San Francisco was the perfect example of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Taking 8 nobodies who aren't even, I didn't even have a Twitch stream at that point. I don't even know why they brought me, and to treat us like royalty. I was like, it was weird. And then to keep thanking us like we did something special, It was like, it was just insane. And it made me love them more. And but another thing is, like, a lot of people don't realize this too, is a lot of some of the producers on the movies of Resident Evil also were producers of the games and Capcom employees. And although they have a very small part in their role and they don't have a lot of influence over story and stuff like that, they do get to see concept art and designs. And it's weird because I've worked at Sony before. I've worked at offices where it's like, oh, here, look at these drawings. And you're like, holy crap, this looks amazing. This movie's going to be amazing. And just because you get these awesome drawings that look accurate to the games or the comics or whatever you're working on, doesn't mean like the final thing is going to be good, which I learned, as I have that job. And I think a lot of Capcom did too. And I think the reason 4, 5, and 6 went in the direction they went is because the movies were fairly successful, especially overseas. And I think they were like, maybe there is something to this. Resident Evil, despite what you think of the movies, is the most successful video game movie franchise ever. It is. It destroys all the money any other video game movie has made. And it's going to be really sad when Assassin's Creed, with great actors like Michael Fassbender and Mario Cotillard, is gonna. What they made on that movie is going to be mere pennies compared to what this really crappy Resident Evil 6 movie is going to make. And I think it was gutsy of Capcom to go, you know what, it doesn't matter what the mainstream are reacting to in other countries with Resident Evil. Our roots are in horror, and we need to go back to that. So to release a game like 7 the same week that the 6th movie is coming out, where it's going to be over the top, it's going to have motorcycles jumping over helicopters, and it's going to have stupid stuff like that, it's pretty awesome of them to go, no, we remember who we are with this franchise, and we're going back to that the best we can.
That you said it. You said it better than any one of us could have said it. I just want to jump back in here to the chat real quick because there were some things that were mentioned as we were talking about the history of Resident Evil and about the missteps of Capcom and them really showing that they do care. Tony had mentions the same thing here. 20 years of gaming, but their history goes back to the 60s. True Pretty Tony also mentions RE3 originally thought to just have a regular citizen as a main character, but changed to Jill to keep it integrated with the story.
Yes.
Go get a what? I didn't know that part. Which is interesting because I guess they kept that premise and around to bring it into Outbreak File 1 and 2. So it's kind of interesting how eventually some of these old ideas come back around.
Yeah, they recycle a lot. I've mentioned this before on my stream real quickly, is like Marvel vs. Capcom. There's a Venom is in it, and he does this attack called the Venom Thing, and the Venom Thing is actually a treasure that you find in Resident Evil 5. And then there's stuff like Ouroboros, which is the virus in 5 Resident Evil 5, but it's also the name of the company that Dante fights in Devil May Cry 2.
Oh, geez, really?
Yeah. So they recycle it.
Oh, man. That's funny. I had never played 2, and not because of what everyone else has said. I just actually never played 2. Go get a... Is it really that much of a I'm just curious. I don't want to stray too far away, but I'm just curious. Is it that much of a departure?
Yeah.
Like,
The short answer, yes.
okay, yeah. I'll talk to you about it later, but yeah, I just it blew my mind that no one really liked it. But okay, Go Getta goes. He likes Resident Evil 3 more because Jill is his favorite, his or her favorite RE character. I like Jill. Claire for the win though. My baby Claire. Like Siike said, Code Veronica was supposed to be the third game, but their deal with only having numbered games for Sony made them switch gears. Plus, Code Veronica was the first Resident Evil on PS2.
Yes. Yep. Code Veronica X.
Yes. Now, well, X was the one that came with that DVD, and then it was originally just Code Veronica, right? X added a couple things, or no?
Yeah, X added like an encounter with Wesker and Claire in her campaign.
Okay.
It added more Chris and Wesker stuff at the end of the game.
That whole big thing. I'm assuming towards the end.
Yeah, where they fist fight each other.
Yeah, with all the explosions happening, or yes, okay, I'm remembering clearly now.
Which also that added a continuity thing in, which was that they didn't mention before, was that Wesker took Steve Burnside's body so that he could have a sample of the T Veronica virus, since Chris blew up what's her name, Alexia.
Yes, that's right. Wow, jeez, I need to play Code Veronica again. Just on the side.
It's really good.
It is really good. It is really good. RE movies are bigger than Assassin's Creed, House of Dead. Oh gosh, House of Dead was a movie. Blood Rain was a movie. That's right. Man.
You know, I also agree with Go Getta where he says it's not just 7 either. Capcom realizing that with Revelations 1 and 2.
Yes, soon after 5. Yeah.
That's a great comment, because that is true. I think Capcom was like, all right, and by the way, if anyone doesn't know, I mean, they're not going to announce anything on it, I'm sure, for a while, because I'm sure priorities right now are 7, and then probably E3 this year, you'll see something about Resident Evil Remake Part 2, or Resident Evil 2 Remake, and then I believe they're in development of a Revelations 3, if I'm not mistaken.
I would not be surprised, and I'm sure everyone would thoroughly enjoy it, and I think one of two things would happen. Here we go. I'm making my first prediction of 2017 right now. E3, they're going to if they announce RE2, it's going to come out January 2018. It seems like a pattern that they're doing. January releases for Resident Evil games. 0, 1, now 7 all came out in January. I'm assuming third, fourth week of January 2018 is when 2 Remake is going to come out. I think they'll cut it that close.
You think it's that far? You think it's that far along?
I think so. And if not, then are they gonna do another remaster of one of the older games or something in the meantime? I feel like they're making this a yearly thing. I think they've moved most of the team at this point to kind of continue production with RE2 at this point. I'm calling it.
I understand. From what I understand, it was 2 different teams that worked on 7 and that started working on 2. Yeah, it's two completely different teams from what I understand.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure they have the staff to do that. Given that a lot of their time was not spent on new IPs these past couple of years, so they probably ramped up on staff, and they're probably going to be moving. I mean, I'd imagine sometimes they'd move certain teams over to work on another project rather than just flat out releasing a bunch of people to not have any jobs. Just from a business standpoint, I'm assuming.
Yeah. That makes sense. Well, what were your other predictions? You said that was one of them.
Yeah, that's the first one of 2017. That's all I got for now. Okay. It was either going to be that, or if they do, if it would be one of two. Either they announced Resident Evil 2 remake to come out in January, or Resident Evil Revelations 3, but Revelations 3 came out. No, Revelations 2, sorry, came out last year also, 2015, right? February? Or was that this year?
Yeah. No, I think the first episode came out in spring of last year, and then they released them one episode at a time.
Every week. Yes. So then yeah, I mean I don't think they would do two brand new story well, that's they could, but I think they would hold off and keep it for the following year if the trend of Resident Evil's coming out every year would go. Plus the movie's coming out, the third CGI movie's coming out. I just saw someone mention Vendetta.
I think in May or March or May or something like that.
Revelation. Tony says Revelations 3 makes a Rebecca comeback. Ooh.
Well, I would say the trend of Resident Evil Revelations so far, based on the first two, is that the villain has to quote either like an old writer, like it was Dante in the first one, and in the second one it was Kafka. So the villain is going to be someone who reads a lot. And the hero is like, what was the first one was Jill and Chris, which was great because it was brought you back to Resident Evil 1. But then the second one had Claire and Barry, which was a really nice combination, actually.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that more than seeing Chris and Jill together again. So I hope 3 is another unusual pairing. Like two people who either haven't met in the franchise before, or at least you've never played together before like that. The Resident Evil 3 Revelation should maybe be like, I would like to see the final moments of Umbrella, as the Empire's crumbling around Oswald E. Spencer, or maybe make that the flashback story, and then have like a main campaign with Carlos and someone, and then maybe like Carlos and Rebecca, and then flashback to like Hunk during the final hours of Umbrella.
Jeez, that would be insane. It'd just be a kind of like a mashup of different concluding stories, I guess you can say, of what happened while these main characters were going on these journeys. Is that what you're alluding to?
Yeah, or at least a couple of have like a new clear point A to point B story in the main game with like Rebecca and somebody else, and then have like this really crazy like almost like how you watch the videotapes in Resident Evil 7, but have these moments where you play a flashback level, and it's like Hunk as like the Wesker or the Oswald Spencer estates are being bombarded by military or something,
Jeez. All right, Siike, you ready? Final mission.
All right.